Okay, my name is Jordan Clayton. For anyone that hasn't met me, I'm the supervisor of the Utah Snow Survey with the NRCS. I wanted to provide an update on where we stand as a state based on our water availability and our snowpack conditions. I also wanted to just spend a couple of minutes looking back at last year's water year. We haven't had a chance to do that with this audience yet, and so we'll have a couple slides talking about water year 2025 in summary, a couple quick highlights. So starting with that, water year 2025, what's shown here is the snowpack record from last year. I'll show a lot of these graphs. I show them in all of our meetings, and I think they're really useful. In all of these, the black line were the data as of those dates. Of course, this isn't current anymore, but you'll see current data shortly with these black lines showing the current information. You can also see how that compares to normal, which is the green line, and the range of observations, which is the different colored shadings based on percentiles. Utah's snowpack peaked a little bit early, but it was at about a normal level of snowpack for the state, about 14.3 inches. And then we had some early melt as well. You can see the rapid decline of our snowpack compared to normal last April. Of course, the snowpack was not abundant throughout the state. We had above normal snowpack for the third consecutive winter in northern Utah, whereas in southern Utah there was a really poor snowpack season. When we look at the snowpack at individual snowtell sites, which is where we measure the water equivalent of our snowpack, we can express these as percentiles. And for the dates that those individual sites peaked, we can see how well they fared compared to the previous observations. Where you see those red colors, those were in the bottom 15% of all observations. So we had some, particularly in southwestern and south central Utah, that were hanging out in that bottom 15% territory, which obviously didn't produce much runoff. Precipitation water year ended at the end of September. When we look at the snowtell sites, that accumulates all the snowpack, of course, information, but the precipitation accumulates through the summer as well, which is nice because it provides a holistic picture of what we've received year-round. As a state, we were a little bit below normal for Utah last water year. You can see how it compared from one basin to the next. Most of the state was in that 50 to 80% or so, 85% or so range of precipitation. There were a couple places where the precipitation was particularly poor. We had record low precipitation in the Pine Valley Mountains at our Gardner Peak snowtell site. We also had second lowest precipitation at 6 other sites, which are colored by orange dots on this map. So let me jump into how things are looking right now. I thought I'd sort of soften the blow with this nice picture that I took during the furlough. Here's a picture of where our snow water equivalent is as of today, or as of yesterday, I should say. The black line, again, is current data, and I have last year's data plotted on here as well for comparison. That's that light blue line. We're about 70% of normal, which is really not where we want to be, about the 13th percentile. Now, it's still very early. As you can see, our normals that we're comparing against are still pretty low numbers. And so I have been getting a couple calls from media, and I've been expressing kind of repeatedly, yes, we're not where we want to be, and it's particularly hard for the resorts, but from a water supply perspective, we have a long time that we can catch up. It would really be a couple nice inch or so level of storms across the state that would catch us up back to that normal level. You can see the distribution of where we received some early snow in October showing up in southern Utah with that blue color for the Escalante Paria. Elsewhere, the state is well below normal to the bottom 50th percentile for snowpack, as you can see on that map on the right. Precipitation, because of that early precipitation that we received in October, we started off the water year well, which of course starts on October 1st. As of yesterday, we're 113% of normal precipitation, and those are nice green-blue colors that we can see on the map. Green being normal, blue being above normal. It dried out, of course, in November. I'll talk more about that in a second, but October really boosted our totals. Air temperature, I don't always talk about in these meetings, but because of the anomalies that we saw in November, I thought I'd mention it. You can see what happened in November. I don't know if you can resolve the dates on the bottom, but it was around the 11th to 15th that we go above the range of previous observations there. We were setting new record maximums in Utah's mountains during those days. Again, this just considers our snowtell data, so we're not looking at valley locations. One item that's been really positive for us is that October precipitation really boosted our soil moisture in Utah's mountains. And we went from a situation where we were well below normal to well above normal soil moisture going into our winter season, which is something we always hope for. And so we are going into now our snowpack retention season, where we're going to have snow that is retained on the ground. Our soil moisture levels probably won't change much from here until the time that we start to get snow melt. And that's good news because, as we say all the time, when we have above normal soil moisture conditions, that does promote good runoff efficiency. It's not a one-to-one, but it does help in that regard. So we like to see that. Looking at statewide reservoir levels, I show this diagram all the time. The 2025 calendar year is shown with the thicker kind of purplish line. You can see the scale on the bottom there. We're ending the year right about the same as we did in 2020. Not great compared to the previous couple of years, but better than we saw in 2021 and 2022. So we're kind of right in the middle of where we've been over the last 5 years as of December 1st from a reservoir capacity perspective. Statewide, about 60%. This is about 13% less than we were last year at this time. Now, if you look at the inset diagram, it's a little hard to see. Maybe I should have made that bigger. But you can see last year's percent of capacity for each one of those basins. That's the purple. Compare that to the green, which is the current year as of December 1st. And there's some pretty large drops, particularly for southern Utah. That's where those depletions are proportionally most significant. This is from the USGS. This is looking at the stream flow across the state. Now, this is not, quote, naturalized, so this does not, of course, account for how we manage water. So if we're storing more water in December, that's not accounted for in this kind of a diagram, is my point. That being said, the current line, the current trend, which is the black line in their graphs as well, I blew up on the bottom right side so you could see a little bit better. We're getting close to the record minimums for our observations for our stream flow in the state. Now to the Great Salt Lake. Current lake level is about 4191.5. It's about 6 feet below where we want to be. There's a pretty nice range that's been put together by this group, and I reference it all the time, where 4198 is at about the bottom end of that optimal range, and we're a little bit more than 6 feet below that. You can see the snowpack in the basin on the left side there, reflecting very much the same trend as the statewide snowpack, and similarly also for the soil moisture in the Great Salt Lake on the bottom left. Now we are working on putting out a new water availability report. I'll talk more about that in just a second. As part of that, we produce these water availability indices. And what these do is they combine current reservoir storage with how much stream flow we're seeing across the state. And then we get percentiles. We can compare this to previous times for this time of year, how those reservoir totals compared, again, reservoir plus stream flow totals compared with previous observations. And we can get an index based on that and compare it to previous years. Where you see the green colors there, it's above normal for those basins. The red colors are below normal, well below normal for those basins. And anything that's not colored is kind of in the middle. All that said, I've kind of summarized for you on the right what I was hoping to take from this slide. We're at or above normal for those basins that are listed. Some really good news for some of those basins. We're concerningly low for the Upper Sevier, Sandpitch, and Beaver, Eastern Uintas, and Little Bear in particular. Now, I'm always reluctant to talk about what's coming. I'm not a weather forecaster, but I will at least publish or include in my presentation 8 to 14 days. That's about as far forward as I like to project personally. But when I borrow from the Climate Prediction Center on the left side there, the 8 to 14 day precip outlook looks positive for northern Utah, not for southern Utah on the left side. And this inset diagram is from Open Snow, which does a nice job summarizing a bunch of different model runs going into the month of December. And I put a little red arrow there. They're expecting a change in our dominant atmospheric pattern around December 17th, which would provide all those colors on the diagrams, which just essentially shows that we're getting some precipitation based on those different model runs. So hopefully a different pattern change will emerge around mid to late December, which will produce some more precipitation. This is based on Alta. This is more of a positive story for northern Utah than southern Utah. All right, and then I'm just going to wrap it up with a couple of quick operational updates from the NRCS Snow Survey team. We are resuming our summer and fall monthly water reports. We haven't been doing those this year. The last report we issued was our last water supply outlook report in May. We are resuming those. We're rebranding a little bit. They're going to be called the Utah Water Availability Updates, which has got an unfortunate acronym of UAU or something. One thing that I'm excited about with these is that we're adding 12 new reservoirs that we've never previously included, and I've listed those here. All of these had excellent data records, and we have good access to current data, so we're going to move forward with these in our reports. We're also working with water rights to instrument some reservoirs around the state so we can get real-time data. This is a picture on the left side from Gunnison. We also have already completed the work up at Woodruff Creek, which is already being telemetered, which is excellent news because we can't get those data midwinter. Our partner who gets to those sites can't get to there on the snow. So we're going to be able to get year-round readings from Woodruff Creek, which is a big improvement. And then just one other thing, I don't know if I've talked about this very much, but we've been improving our snow depth sensors at our sites. The previous version, which is called a JUD sensor, was great for a while, but they tend not to work well during storms, which is when we want the data most. And so we've been replacing those with those red circles and those blue dots, which are basically just better sensors. And that is about 85% complete. All right, that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions. And thank you, as always, for including us in this agenda.
Great.